Welcome back. Fino here with something a little different. Manannan has quite a bit of material, both in-game and in lore, so I'll be splitting the two into separate videos this time. With that said, let's examine the mythology of Manannan. Manannan is a sea god present in the folklore of both the Irish and the Manx. The latter refers to the Isle of Man between Britain and Ireland, and it's possible the man in the Isle of Man actually refers to Manannan, and the weird human-like Beyblade in the island's flag may refer to some legends where Manannan wheels across the countryside and all you see is a blur of spinning legs. As far as I can tell, Manannan doesn't have a single narrative throughline to follow. Instead, he pops up in a lot of local folklore, and his role and powers are all over the place. He can create a magical mist to hide the Isle of Man from would-be invaders, he ferries the souls of the dead, he has a boat that drives itself, he has a horse that gallops across the land and sea alike, which, no disrespect to the boat, but does he really need both? And then there's his sword, Fragarach, the Answerer. This blade could, when placed against someone's neck, compel them to tell the truth. It could also bypass any armor to inflict mortal wounds, which is perhaps the basis for how it works in Fate. But I also found something very strange, or rather the absence of something I was expecting. I could not find a single instance of Manannan actually using Fragarach's abilities in a story. He has plenty of chances to, which brings us to one of the meatier threads about Manannan, O'Donnell's Kern. In this story, Manannan wanders the land incognito, crashing parties and playing pranks. And I don't mean the ha-ha kind of prank. I mean the social experiment gone wrong, gone sexual, people die kind of prank. One day he shows up to a feast held by one of the O'Donnells, who reigned as kings in Northwest Ireland. He and his guests are having a grand old time, and one of them brags that this is the best damn party from the Atlantic all the way to Greece. Cue Manannan, strolling in with water in his old leather shoes and his ears poking out of a mantle that he wore over his head. A mantle's a bit like a cape, a loose covering for your torso and a bit of your lower body. Last I checked, they're not really meant for your head. He's also got Fragarach sticking out behind him with its bare blade exposed, and he's got 3 spears in his right hand. But they aren't spears in the proper sense, they're burnt pieces of wood. Sharp and hard, but a bit basic. The point is that Manannan looks absolutely ridiculous walking into this party, and he goes, "What's up, O'Donnell?" And O'Donnell's like, "Hey, 1 second." He then calls over the porter. "Did you let this guy in here? Like, what am I paying you for?" Manannan intervenes, saying he could come and go as he pleases and that the poor porter couldn't have stopped him either way. The baffled O'Donnell is like, "Okay, take a seat then." And to this, Manannan replies, "Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I do what I want." He then calls out to the musicians present and tells them to play a song. Earlier, the partygoers were bragging about how these were the best players in Western Europe. Well, they get into a song, and apparently it's a pretty decent one, about Manannan. He goes, No, this is fucking awful. You guys sound like a busy day at the smithy." He then grabs a harp off one of them and proceeds to blow everyone's mind with a tune that, quote, would put women in their labor, unquote. Is that a good thing? Okay, if you say so. O'Donnell, who had been getting real sick of Manannan's attitude, is now awestruck. "Oh my god, you are one sweet player." To which Manannan replies, "One day I am sweet, another day I am sour." That's one for the dating profile, lads. O'Donnell calls for Manannan to take a seat next to him. "Nah, no thanks, I'm good where I am." He then asks his servants to bring Manannan some new clothes. This too the traveler rebuffs, saying, "I have no mind to let high-up people be making a boast of giving them to me." In other words, "Oh no, you don't get to brag about your generosity towards this super genius wandering musician. You simply witnessed me." Understanding that Manannan meant to leave, O'Donnell orders his men to surround him. Manannan says, "What's up with the goons?" "To keep you here." "No way, bro. I've got another party to crash tomorrow." At this, one of the mercenaries pipes up. "If you take one step towards that door, you'll be on your ass in an instant." Them's fighting words. So Manannan draws his sword. Finally, we're gonna see what the fabled Fragarach does in action. But then he does something wild. He puts Fragarach away, whips the harp back out, and starts playing. And walking. He starts strolling towards the door, plucking away. The mercenaries have had enough of this shit, and move to strike down this impudent traveler. One guy yanks his axe above his head for a big chop, but he embeds it in the guy behind him. Another goes for Manannan's back, but he swings wide, getting a fellow guard in the stomach. And then another, and so it goes on until every guard in this castle is laid low, not by Manannan, but by each other. Ladies and gentlemen, Manannan, thinking this rabble not worth using Fragarach, has busted out his bankai instead. As he walks out the door, he calls out to the porter from earlier and hands him a bundle of herbs. Rub this in the gums of the dead and they'll rise from their embarrassing deaths. But before the man runs off, he grabs him. The price is 20 cows and a plot of land from O'Donnell. Once he extracted this payment, Manannan wandered off into the distance, no doubt leaving everyone utterly confused. At another party, he walks up to the big boss and goes, "If I show you a cool trick, will you pay me?" And O'Kelly's like, "Yeah, sure." So Manannan puts 3 blades of water grass on his palm and says, "I'll only blow the middle one away." He then holds the other 2 in place by curling his fingers, and indeed blows only the middle one away. O'Kelly says, "That certainly is a trick," and gives him the money. On seeing this, one of his men pipes up, "What the fuck, that's not a trick! Give me half that money and I'll do it right now." Manannan accepts this challenge and offers up half his take, if the man succeeds. So the soldier puts the grass on his hand, curls his fingers in, but instead of holding the grass in place, the guy's fingers go into his hand. Manannan takes the opportunity to rib the man. No, you're doing it wrong. But he does the guy a solid and heals him so he's not stuck with a ring binder for a hand. Manannan then turns to O'Kelly and goes, "If you pay me, I'll show you another trick." "Okay, do it." Manannan then grabs one of his ears and moves it up, and then back down. At this, the same soldier pipes, "Now this, I'm sure I could do this." He then grabs his ear and pulls, ripping it straight off his head. The soldier's a bit of a lunatic for trying after the first time, but I'm gonna go ahead and assume the guy wasn't normally made of papier-mâché. Manannan once again heals him, presumably in a way that he isn't stuck with the properties of a living piñata. For his next trick, Manannan pulls out a string and flings it into the sky. It sticks onto a cloud. Then he whips out a rabbit and it runs up the string. He pulls out a dog and it dashes off in pursuit of the rabbit. He then pulls out a boy and tells him to make sure nothing weird is happening up there. Evidently, no one saw fit to comment on the fact that Manannan was pulling all these things out of a single bag. He then completes the package by pulling out a girl, telling her to keep an eye on the others upstairs. She then goes up, and after a little while, the racket stops. Manannan goes, I wonder what's happening up there. He then pulls on the thread and the quartet comes tumbling down. Well, trio now. The dog found his lunch. As for the boy and girl, they were making out. Manannan was furious. He whips out Fragarach and separates the boy's head from his shoulders. So the one time Manannan actually uses Fragarach as a weapon, he doesn't use any of its special powers. He just lops some random guy's head off. At this, O'Kelly is like, "Why do you have to kill people while I'm right here? Don't do that." Manannan chills out and says, "Okay, it's okay. I can fix this." So he bends over, picks up the boy's head, and dunks it back onto his body. The guy leaps up to his feet, good as new. Well, there is one little problem. His head's on backwards. On seeing this, O'Kelly goes, "That's fucked up. Should we put him out of his misery?" Manannan then grabs the boy's head and spins it around, this time in the correct direction. He then disappears without a trace. And so Manannan wandered the land, getting up to mischief, traumatizing and mutilating along the way. But it's alright, it'd all be fixed up by the end of the day. He's like an R-rated Bugs Bunny. Once, for a laugh, he pissed the locals off and let them try to hang him. Only when the floor dropped, he'd walk out of a nearby house, revealing that they'd hung some random guy instead. A real trickster, this Manannan. In other traditions, he wouldn't get off quite so easily. One story has him inviting St. Patrick to his castle for dinner, but the old scamp goes for a classic prank. One of the dishes? The meat's poisoned. Well, one of the serving staff whispers this in St. Patrick's ear, and St. Patty opts for a prank of his own. The old seal him in a jar and abandon him at the bottom of a lake trick. Except unlike Manannan, St. Patrick plays for keeps, and just leaves him there. If you guys know any fun Manannan stories, feel free to drop them in the comments. Also, let me know how you like this format. I can't promise to do it for every servant, since some of them have very scarce material, but I'm not opposed to sticking with it either. That said, subscribe for more, and come watch me at twitch.tv/Finotaisen, where I stream every week, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Might try that Samurai Remnant DLC when it comes out, among other things. See you there.